So today we are going to be drawing with coloured pencils a rather dilapidated, dried out rose. And the reason we're doing this is because I personally find dilapidated, dried out roses a bit more fascinating to draw because there are more sort of crevices and textures than I would do with a normal rose. So that's why, I mean, if you look at the shape of the leaves, they're rather fantastic. It looks like it's got real character, like a bowed head with some arms in front of it. And look at the shadows as well, really beautiful. So you can experiment with your own lighting to get the sort of shadow that you want. But what's lovely about the shadow I've got is that it seems to have a tinge of pink in it. So what I'm going to try and do is arrange it like something like that. So I'm going to put it to the side of the page. You can either take a photo and work from that, or you can actually have the rose next to you. I'm going to put it over on the side of the page like that, but I'm going to try and make it so that the shadow's a bit more interesting. I'm going to do it like that, actually, not like that. But if I actually can manage to tilt it a bit, that shadow's even more dramatic. So it's trying to find a way to set your flower up or whatever your subject is so that you can draw it in the way that we want to. So I think I'm going to tape that down so that I can have more control over the shadow. So I'm going to use some masking tape and I'm going to tape it down so it stays in the right angle, and obviously try and avoid drawing the tape. It's not very nice. But I think that's a bit more interesting. I'm going to go like that. Whoops. Yeah, that would be fine for me. That's nice. And then I'm going to work next to it. That's the easiest way of working, is that you can see it in front of you. However, you're drawing flat. So it might be an idea for you at home to lift your paper up and lean it against a board. I'm going to work like this because I'm used to it. But if you want to, you can actually raise it up and work on it that way. Of course, the shadow will change a bit. But anyway, I'm going to work on it like this. So I'm going to use a variety of colouring pencils, good ones and not so good ones in terms of quality. I might even use a biro. I'm going to use a mechanical pencil for sure, and the biro, and an eraser, and obviously have a pencil sharpener close by. That's important. And just make sure that you've got enough colours. I mean, I'm going to use sort of a load of different colours for this. I'm going to use the obvious pink and yellow and brown and green, but I'm going to slip in some other colours as well, like violets and umbers and greys and oh, what else? Blues, all sorts of colours. But I'm going to start with the lightest colour because with colouring pencils, it's best to start with the lightest colour. So I am going to start drawing, first of all, a very gentle sketch of this. So I'm going to start drawing. Now I'm going to do it as I can see it, which means that I'm not looking at the top. I'm actually looking at it from here, which I quite like. So I'm going to do that so it looks as if it's sort of almost looking at me. So what I do is a very rough sketch to begin with, very, very rough, just to get a general feel of where things are. Okay, I've started drawing and I'm drawing it from this angle, which you can't see, which looks more like that, because I prefer that feeling of the flower coming towards me. It feels like it's sort of facing with the center as the eye. So that's the view I'm doing, although you can see more of the view of the top. So you choose the view you want. I've made it a bit darker on that side and a bit lighter on this side, so you can see the pencil markings that I'm doing. Now it's going to look different from what you can see because, as I explained, I am drawing from this side. And I come down. It's quite, I mean, it's lovely to have the object right next to you. So I'm just positioning things really. It's not my final drawing, but it's just to get an idea of where things are going, like that. So for me as a start, that's probably enough. I've done a general drawing, very, very loose, very basic. And I've rubbed it back a little bit so it's not so strong. And now I'm going to go in with one of my lightest colours, which is this sort of yellow ochre colour. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to start getting a little bit more blocked in of where I want things to go. Why yellow ochre? It's a good colour because it's quite good at blending beneath everything else. So it's a bit like when you're oil painting, you use a thin wash of a yellow ochre, sort of thin wash to get your painting started. So it's quite a nice way to work, just so that you've got the sort of ground, the foundation of everything beneath. So I'm just sort of beginning to get a little bit of colour in, just a little bit. Goes there, that goes there, like that. Then we come down. And things might shift a bit as you're starting to draw in. So I can see that's a bit lower, things like that. And then I've got this lovely leaf coming like that, like that, like that, like that. That's a bit shorter than I thought it was, so I can rub that out, which was the pencil drawing underneath. Okay, so I've got the beginnings of something. Something's there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my yellow, and I can use this over all of my drawing. Why? Because the yellow is pretty much going to be under all of these colours. It's under the green, it's under the orange, it's under the pink. So we can get away with it. We can get away with it. I'm using a Derwent Lightfast pencil, which is actually quite nice. It's very soft, and it's not too waxy. So you get a nice sense of colour and flow. Actually really nice. So I'm just blocking it in. Now, some people with colouring pencils don't tend to block in like this. This is just the way I work. They might want to do it a little bit more painstakingly at each section and start with the head and then build down the stem, etc., etc. But this is the way I work, and it works for me. Now I'm going to go in with a bit of the orange. I'm just blocking in colour. I'm not being massively precise. I can do, but for me, the sort of style I've developed over the years is more about getting the essence of something, and that really suits the way that I work. Once again, with this orange, you can pretty much go over everything, not too much on the green, but orange and green are actually really nice combination of colours. It slightly warms up the green, so you can go more heavily up here onto the rose head, which is obvious why, because there's more of that colour there. So I'm still blocking it in. It's still very rough. I'm still blocking it in. Now I'm going to move on to my red. This is a Derwent Pro colour. So I'm going to put in some red, this, and a bit in there. Now, as I say, some colouring pencil people will just find this horrifying. But this is the way that I work, and I find it suits me very well. It's not a photographically representational drawing by any means. Okay, so I've put in some of the red, and I'm just using a sort of undercoat here. And I'm going to go with some, I'm actually going to go back in with some yellow ochre because it's quite dusty looking. Now, this one is a Conti crayon. This is more of a chalky substance. Okay, right. Now I'm going to go in with some green because I can see a bit of green in here as well. And then I'm going to go in with the green, not the right green yet, but just a bit of green on here, just to get the quality of the undercoat. And in fact, that green on the leaves is, because it's dried out, is quite a sort of dusty green. I'm just doing the undercoat. That a bit in here. Like that. A little bit, just a bit. And then I'm going to go in with some more yellow. Get some more yellow in there. Now, better quality colouring pencils have got less wax in. The best colouring pencils have got oil-based binder. So it means that you can build up the colour without it getting too waxy. So it's very beneficial. Okay, I'm just using a general coating over everything. Now I'm going to go in with a turquoisey colour. Actually, no, I'm going to go in with a cerulean blue. Cerulean blue to get some of this green, more of the right colour. And notice I'm not using any blending tools. I've used my finger once or twice, but I'm not actually blending it. I'm allowing it to be quite a lively line. But I'm going to put some in here as well. A little bit on those. And we're beginning to get a sense of something a bit more three-dimensional, purely because I'm building up the colour. And because it's got a lively line, in other words, it's not too blended, then I have got quite a lot of liveliness and animatedness, if there's such a word. Animation, I think the word is for that. Okay, just building it up very slowly, still not there yet. And don't forget, of course, that I'm doing it from this angle. So it's more like that. You can't really see that. Now I'm going to go in for a nice brown. And I'm going to get a bit darker. Now, here's where I can start to get a bit of the detail in. You can see that I'm starting to get a bit of depth in there now. I'm starting to look more closely and starting to get in some nice depth. As soon as I put that in, I'm starting to get the depth that is in there. And that's very useful because it's allowing me to show the depth of the flower head. Now, some of this green feels a bit umbery around here, the dried out green on these sort of spiky bits. And then I'm going to put a bit in here, just a tiny bit in here. And some more on the stem because that's slightly different, that colour. And a bit in the shading down here. We're building up, it's very much like painting actually, but more like painting, not so much with watercolour. Although we're going light to dark, it's got more of a sense of working in oils really, because you're thinking about blending the paint, whereas with watercolor, you're thinking about layering. Okay, so it just can you see it starting to build up? I'm going to put back in some nice purpley color now. I'm going to try and get in some of that nice, some shading on here. And because they're good pencils, well, most of them are, some of them are a bit cheap, I can really start to get in some of that sense of richness by layering it. Around here. Now, with colouring pencils, you can use white as well, which is very useful for this. Because I can lay some white down and then I can use it like a blending tool. Now, you can get a colourless pencil blender, which are very useful. But you can also use white over the top and then put colour back in over that if you've got good pencils. If you haven't, you've sort of got a few restrictions on that because you'll build up too much wax. Beginning to get a sense of it now. Notice there's a bit of depth in there. Okay, I'm going to tackle the more grey areas here. So I'm going to go in with a I'm going to go in with a bit of white over the top here. Now this is more of a chalky white, which is a Conti, and I'm going to use it to blend. You can see that it's starting to blend for me. Very useful tool. It's a Conti white, and as I said, some colorists would not use this at all, but I find it very useful for blending. Go back in up here. And it's allowing me to blend. It's not sitting on the top, but it is allowing me to blend. You can see that a bit closely. It's allowing me to blend. I don't know many other people that work this way, but okay, so got some action in there. And then we're going to go in with, I'm going to use a bit of graphite actually for the green. Graphite just means ordinary pencil. Very useful because it's got a tiny bit of binder in. And it sort of works quite nicely on the top of that Conti white. Graphite's got a bit of blender in. It's just a normal pencil. And it gives me a little bit of that grey I need. Getting some of those little frayed, spiky bits. Quite nice. I'm going to go back in. And I'm going to try and use this to get some shading in. Lay down some shadows. Okay, and if it's too much on some bits, you can always use your rubber to sort of blend it back a bit, really. And also the rubber can be useful for lifting off lighter areas that you might want. You can lift the colour back off. Now, one little trick is I'm going to put in a background, a strong colour. I'm going to go for a purple. Now, the reason I'm going to do this is because it will make the rose pop a bit. What I mean by that is stand out. And if you can see, as soon as I start to put this colour in, I start to get more of a sense of the flower. You see that? So that's quite nice. I can highlight the stem now. You see the stem was a bit lost, but now it's coming back. And it really helps to make your picture pop a bit and also to help you see where you might need to do a little bit more work. And the main thing is it gives your picture an outline. So you don't have to keep adding in outlines. You can avoid putting in outlines. See, I've outlined that leaf now. Okay, so for me, that's looking quite good. I'm going to use some of this purple back in the rose. And I haven't forgotten about the highlights on the rose. I'm just still adding to it. I've got lots more to do on this. Early bit that I'm going to use a bit of purple for this as well. Okay, so we're beginning to get there. Feels really rather nice. It's a sort of takes a while process, but it is very enjoyable. Colouring pencils are so nice to use. Okay, so I cannot find the white. So I'm going to have to use my eraser on the top of a mechanical pencil so I can lift off some of those lighter areas. You can always go back over with your Conte white and cover it over a little bit. Gives it a bit of a coating and brings it down a little bit. That's one way of dealing with it. So at the end, you can always come in with a mechanical pencil and get some sharper detail. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tackle the shadow. Now I need to give myself a little bit more background here to fit the shadow in. And I'm going to use a dark blue. I'm going to use a ultramarine blue for the shadow. And I'm going to do it on the side of the pencil. You can actually see that now. So I want to put in the shadow as well. It's changed actually, hasn't it? The shadow. And yeah, so I am going to put it in like this. Like this, bit of shadow. Quite nice against the purple. Now the shadow is not quite as dramatic as it was before because the lighting's changed since I've been doing this. But for me, just a little touch of it with the blue is enough to indicate what it is. Nice. Nearly there, actually. I feel like I'm nearly there with this. Now I'm cheating a little bit. I'm adding a bit of shadow where there isn't actually any, because I quite like the idea of having a bit more of a dramatic. Quite like this actually. I'm quite pleased with this. Can I put any blue? Once I'm holding a colour, I sort of tend to want to go back in and use it for things. Let's see if there's anywhere I can use it. Maybe not too much with the blue. I'm going to go back in with a little bit of an umber, a gentle umber to get some of that faded feel. I'm going to go in with a bit more of this blue over the leaves so they don't feel quite so alive. And they feel a bit deader. There's such a word, deader. I can even exaggerate the shape. And I rather like that. I think that's rather lovely. And I think for me, a bit of sharpness back in here. And there, get a bit more purple going into the okay, I'm just going to go back in with the gentle pink. And then I think the final piece will be to go back in with my pencil and just pick out some of the detail that may have got a little bit lost. That needs to go a bit greener, I've realised. Let's get a little bit greener at the back. And then I'll put a bit of blue on the top, pale blue. I think I'm going to stop. I'm very happy with that. Lovely. There's my dilapidated rose.